A perfect, starry night over the world's second highest peak. The mountain is silent, a dark and peaceful giant. But look closer. At its base, dozens of tiny lights glow, a small city of tents crowded with ambitious climbers. At 3 a.m., the quiet night shatters. Headlamps flicker on, cutting through the freezing dark. Zippers rasp, and low, tense voices break the silence. Their goal is the Bottleneck. A climber's headlamp beam illuminates the sheer blue ice wall. It looks terrifying, even in this narrow light. But the beam stops moving. Ahead, a line of other lights is frozen on the slope. A traffic jam has formed in the death zone. Hours begin to vanish. Watch as the sky behind the summit cycles from black to blue to sunset. An entire day passes, and they are still waiting. Then, a sound that triggers pure dread. A deep tectonic crack echoes from the mountain's core. The ice is tearing itself apart. In the moonlight, a building-sized shadow detaches. The serac falls in a silent, slow-motion nightmare before the screen is wiped clean. Dawn reveals the catastrophe. Tiny dots of climbers are stranded high up, trapped above a landscape of shattered ice. August 1st, 2008. 11 reached the summit. 11 would never come down. This is how a perfect storm of errors created K2's darkest day. K2's darkest day, the 2008 disaster on the Savage Mountain, the story of ambition, error, and survival against impossible odds. First, you must understand K2's brutal geography. It's not just remote, it's isolated by hundreds of miles of treacherous glacier. And the final gauntlet is the Bottleneck, a 60-degree ice chute, and hanging directly over it, a ticking time bomb of unstable ice. By late July 2008, base camp was packed. Teams from across the globe were anxious, playing cards and staring at the cloud-covered peak. They formed a fragile alliance, pointing at maps in a crowded tent, but cooperation was thin. There was no single leader in charge. The forecast finally gave a green light, a 48-hour window of clear weather. The date was circled, July 31st to August 2nd. This was their chance. The long, slow ascent to the highest camp began, a line of determined figures trudging up the Sazin route, committing to the push. At Camp 4, the air is thin, the wind fierce. In cramped tents, they checked oxygen masks. This was the final, tense launch pad. Then, a critical loss. The experienced porter Shaheen Beg fell violently ill. He had to descend. A key guide was gone before the summit bid even started. At midnight, a climber stepped out, looked up at the stars above the summit, and took a deep, freezing breath, the point of no return. The crisis began instantly. The men fixing the ropes didn't have enough. They were already behind, fumbling in the darkness. The result was a complete standstill. From above, you see a snaking line of 20 or more headlamps, not a single one moving upward. 2 lights peeled away, descending. A wise early retreat. Over the radio, a warning crackled. It's too late, it's too crowded. At first light, the first fall. A climber unclipped to pass another, slipped and vanished down the icy gully in a horrifying silent tumble. As others reached him, a second tragedy. Another man lost his footing, bumping into them and sliding uncontrollably away. 2 were gone. The sun climbed high. Climbers checked watches, their faces etched with frustration and fear. Their safe schedule was destroyed. Yet the summit push continued. Headlamps pressed onto the exposed traverse, a knife-edge ridge with a 3,000-meter drop. The summit, at last, but it was 7 p.m. The climber's face showed no joy, only exhaustion and deep worry. They turned around immediately. Darkness on K2 is instant and total. The mountain's huge shadow raced up the slopes, swallowing the last light of day. Their only connection to safety was a thin line, fixed ropes anchored into the ice, a fragile lifeline for dozens of exhausted people. Then the sound returned, louder, closer, a deep groaning crack, followed by a building, earth-shaking roar. the hanging ice cliff exploded. It crashed onto the Traverse and Bottleneck in a cataclysmic cloud of ice and debris. The ropes were sliced clean through. The severed ends whipped away into the void. The path home was erased. Moonlight revealed the new, hopeless reality. Survivors were now isolated specks, trapped above a chaotic jumble of broken ice. Radio channels exploded with panic. Overlapping voices in Korean, Italian, Dutch. The ropes are gone. We are cut off. The terrible choice. Huddle on a tiny ledge fighting frostbite, or try to climb down the sheer, ropeless ice in pitch darkness. One man moved with calm precision, Pemba Galye Sherpa. While others froze, he began the impossible downclimb. Nearby, an act of incredible loyalty. Cheering Dorje Sherpa tied his teammate directly to his harness, becoming a human anchor. High above, a single light wobbled, then plunged straight down the black face. Another life lost to the darkness. Wilco van Rooyen and Ger MacDonald chose to stop. They sat in the open, their gear frosting over, trying to survive until dawn. Morning light revealed the horrific scale. The Bottleneck was a scar. Tiny dots of climbers were stranded high up, trapped above a landscape of shattered ice. High up, a specific crisis. The Korean team and a Sherpa were tangled in a web of ropes, completely immobilized on the ice wall. Seeing their plight, Ger MacDonald and Italian climber Marco Confortola turned back. They began a treacherous climb to help. For agonizing hours, Ger sawed at the tangled ropes. It was a desperate slow-motion race against the collapsing mountain. Finally, a cut rope snapped free. One of the trapped climbers moved an arm. They were loose, a moment of hard-won hope. But the camera tilts up. Above them, the ice field shifts. Another, final serac shears off the mountain's face. The screen floods with blinding, crushing white. All sound is smothered. Then a heavy, absolute silence. The avalanche passes. The slope where Ger and the freed climbers stood is now empty. Only scraps of rope remain in the ice. 11 names, from Serbia, Norway, Ireland, South Korea, Nepal, France. A scroll of the lost against a black screen. Meanwhile, Wilco, delirious and snowblind, stumbled alone down a distant wrong ridge, a miraculous walk out of the death zone. At base camp, the shock set in. Climbers hugged, packed in silence. The vibrant camp from weeks before was now a gravesite. The whir of helicopter blades broke the mountain's silence. Pakistani pilots performed daring rescues, plucking the injured from the glacier. The world reacted. News channels and newspapers from every continent led with the story. K2 tragedy was the headline everywhere. The official inquiry pinpointed the perfect storm. No unified leader, the rope delay, the traffic jam, the dangerously late summit time. The legacy was change. Now, climbers on K2 must agree to a single cooperative plan before anyone leaves base camp. Pemba Galye was named Adventurer of the Year, his humble face in photos a stark contrast to the superhuman calm he showed on the mountain. In Ireland, Ger MacDonald's family placed a memorial, a quiet moment of grief, a world away from the mountain that took him. Today, drone footage shows K2 in all its majesty, clean, silent, and untouched. The mountain does not remember. The final lesson is clear. This was not just an avalanche. It was the moment human ambition collided with the absolute limit of the human body. This story forces a question. What, in your view, was the single greatest error? The lack of leadership or summiting so late? Debate it in the comments below. Let us know your analysis of this historic disaster. The story of K2 is far from over. To understand its brutal reputation, watch our deep dive comparing it to Everest right now. Subscribe and hit the bell to explore more stories where human drama meets the forces of nature. Thanks for watching.